So I actually filmed this video like a month and a half ago. Turns out I hated it. It took me like half a day to film it. I drug in all the footage into the editing software, iMovie, and I had over an hour's worth of footage. And I started editing it and I looked back at it and I was just like, man, this video is just... So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna refilm the whole thing and hopefully do a better job at it. So here I am today, folks, trying to do a better job. Let's learn how to turn a loop or tiny musical idea into a full-on song. Alright, so this is Summer Drives. This is a record that me and my sister put out back in August of 2018. And it is like kind of like a pop EDM dance song. So yeah, basically, the loop was like this. This is how the loop started. Yeah, and it just loops like that. It's just a 4-bar loop. And that's basically like the meat of the song. And the number one most important thing when you have a loop, you need to make sure that it has like a really good vibe. Like you need to make sure there's enough meat there to work with to be able to like structure it and arrange it. The next important thing is arrangement. You need to have really good arrangement skills and knowledge for songs. So for this song, it's a pop EDM song. When I made this like loop or this beat, I knew I wanted it to be a pop EDM song. And so I went and studied pop EDM music structure. So if you're making hip hop music or any other type of music, you need to go and listen to that music and figure out the structure. A really good way to do this is to actually just count how many measures are each section. So like the verse in this song is 16 bars. In most pop EDM songs, the verses are 16 bars. When it comes to the pre-chorus, they're typically 8 to 16 bars, and in the drop, they're typically 8 to 16 bars. And then with intros, they're typically 4 to 8 bar intros. So once I had the meat, I started just like dragging out sections to form like quick intros, quick verses, and quick pre-choruses. So for example, I just drag these chords and put them over here. Bam! And that's the intro. Super simple intro. So for this song, how you really figure out like how long your sections need to be, whether like your intro needs to be 4 bars or 8 bars, a really good way to figure that out is if you look at the tempo of your song. So like the tempo of this song is 107. And I actually went and looked up a lot of pop EDM records that were around this tempo range and they all had 4-bar intros. So I was like, all right, mine's gonna have a 4-bar intro. So once, I had that intro super simple, I was like, all right, now it's time to go into the verse. And that's when I just, I didn't want to add too much drums either, but I just wanted to build a vibe. And so that's why the verse sounds like this. I mean, we can even like, I'll do this, so like without everything, so here's the intro. There's just an effects right there to help sell the transition between the intro and the verse. But obviously there needs to be something there, so that's why I kept the kick, to give it that pulsing vibe, a bass. But even this, I felt like, it needed something still there, so that's why this like guitar thing is there. And it just gives it like this pulsing vibe, and it sounds really cool. So the verses, I knew that I wanted them to be 16 bars. But obviously you don't want 16 bars of just the same thing repeating, so you have to build it up a bit. So I knew this 8-bar section here was good. It sounded vibey. But over here, in this 8-bar section, I knew I needed to add some more drums. And so, since I already had all those drums, this is where I put them and kind of built it in. I kind of added a little, like, introduction to them. That's the whole verse right there. So yeah, so once I had the verse done, I knew it was pre-chorus time because I wanted to get eventually to the drop because it's a pop EDM song. So For this song and its tempo range, it was at 107. I knew that most pre-choruses are going to be 8 bars, so I wanted mine to be 8 bars. If this song was at 125 BPM, I probably would have made the pre-chorus a 16-bar pre-chorus instead of an 8. So I literally just dragged things over and was like, all right, how do I make this into a pre-chorus that builds into a drop? And I knew that a perfect way to do that would be the 16th note stabby things, like stabby chords, helps really transition. So like, for example, this part, and it's like up filtering too. If you look here, and then that's the drop. But this part really helps build that transition, because like without this, obviously there's a couple effects, but nothing really changes. But with it, that's really the main thing. And obviously this up filter here helps really sell it, helps really sell that transition. Also, here's a quick tip when arranging. When you're transitioning between a pre-chorus to a chorus, you typically want to cut out some drums here and there. So like, oh, also bass. You also might want to cut out the bass, depending on your style of record. But like here, I cut out the bass at the last measure while it's up filtering, and I took out some drums. So like the kick is no longer there. It comes back in towards that last measure. And then I also added a little bit of a drum like fill here to go into the chorus. Yeah, if you look at a lot of pop EDM song tutorials, I mean, everybody does that. It's nothing new. But yeah, like once I had that, then it was drop time. And the drop is actually like super simple too. I actually just dragged over a lot of the things that I had from the chorus and pre-chorus and put it in the drop. The only difference is I actually took away the long whole notes of the chords that I had. So like these chords are like holding. And the bass is also doing the same thing. In the drop, I actually made all the chords 16th notes to really give it like movement. And so that's why I kept this sound here. The cutoff is all the way open, so that's why the chords are sounding bigger. I also layered it with piano. The bass, I also opened the cutoff of the bass, so it sounds a little different. The bass sounds different, but it's 8th notes, or 16th notes as well. But yeah, other than that, I literally just dragged the drums over. So like literally the drums are basically the same. I took out the clap, because I didn't need the clap in there, and I just kept the snare, made the snare hit on every 2 and 4. And the hats are the same, the kick's the same. Yeah, it's a lot of the stuff is the same, but it is a little different. This is what it sounds like without the lead. Oh, I forgot these cymbals down here. So these are just more like effects here. It just really helps sell that that chorus hitting. So I always put cymbals there. A lot of records will put cymbals or crashes or some type of effects at the start of a chorus, just because it helps like the chorus hit harder and impact. So yeah, it really pays to study other records so that you can know what to do in your own. Tip of the day. But yeah, that's basically the drop, and then just add a lead. Another thing to note is if you listen to records, you often hear like drum fills at the end of choruses. So at the end of this chorus, I made a little drum fill. I kind of made the drum fills. I mean, all these kicks and snares are samples, but like I actually programmed the drum samples. A lot of people will actually go and just look up drum fills on Splice and just drag and drop drum fills from there. I do have some of those as well, but in this record, I actually made it. In this song, there are drum fills that I didn't make. The bridge, for example, these drums, so those like big warp do. I actually didn't make that. That's a sample. That's an example of using drum fills that you didn't make and putting it in your record. It just sounded good, so I just used it. But yeah, so like after the first drop, then you just need to, it's basically the second verse isn't much different than the first verse, but you do need to make it a little different. So I just arranged the drums differently, and so now you can hear that big war drum thing in the beginning of the second verse. So it just sounds a little different. The second 8 bars of the verse, I actually just added a little sound here. And then just built it up the same as I did in the last pre-chorus. The second drop is the exact same thing as the first drop. I'm pretty sure I just copied and pasted it over. Nothing too crazy. Now the bridge is something that, in pretty much every song, the bridge needs to be something that sounds completely different or takes you away from what the rest of the song has been doing. So for this one, I was just playing around with sounds, and basically I kept 2 sounds in here from the verse, and I'm pretty sure it's just the bass line. Yeah, it's the bass line from the verses. And then I dragged the guitar over. And I'm pretty sure what I did here to like come up with this verse was to actually just go listen to other music and see what other people did in their bridges. And then I just kind of like took ideas from what they did and just tested out ideas that worked here. So like, for example, this reverb snap. I didn't come up with that on my own. That was from, I believe another record did that. And I was just like, oh, that's a really cool idea. I wonder if that will work in my song. And it did. Also, another thing was I knew I wanted like some big like orchestral drum things, like toms or something. And that's where this idea came from. Like these, with the snap. And so yeah, that's basically how those drums were made. But yeah, that's the whole bridge. And then once I had the bridge, I knew I needed to go back to the pre-chorus, or not the pre-chorus, I needed to go back to the chorus because you need to end the song, you know? Yeah, I just transitioned out from the bridge. Went back to the chorus, and this time I knew that the chorus needed to be 16 bars because if you listen to a lot of pop EDM records, their first and second chorus are 8, and their last is typically 16 to be like one big final, like, yeah, like song. It really brings it to like that peak moment of the song. So basically, the first 8 bars of this drop are the same as the others, but the second 8 bars of this drop, of the last drop, I added more drums. Basically, all I did was add the claps from the pre-chorus and put it in the last drop, in the last 8 bars of the drop, and it really just like makes it sound different. So yeah, and obviously we did some things with the vocals to like really help build it even more, because vocals do that as well. But yeah, and then, you know, once I was finished with this last 8 bars, I knew the song needed to end, so did a quick transition and just the song ends. So yeah, that's basically how I took, you know, that initial loop of the meat of the song and structured it out into one full thing. Now obviously I probably made it sound a lot easier than it actually was to do that. But yeah, that took a long time to like get it sounding right and all the drum fills right, make sure the drum samples are right, and you know, to actually flesh out the full idea. But yeah guys, that's how I turned this initial loop into the full song Summer Drives. It really just comes down to listening to other records and just paying attention to what they do in their full-on song structure, and just like counting bars and everything else I mentioned in this video. I hope y'all enjoyed watching this video, and I hope y'all were able to learn a lot. I hope now y'all can take your song and turn it into a full loop, and who knows, maybe we'll hear it on the radio one day. That'd be awesome. But yeah, if you thought this video was helpful and y'all learned a lot, please make sure to give this video a like. And if you'll have any more questions for me, just leave them down below in the comments, and I'll make sure to get back to you guys on that. I'll see you guys next week. All right.